Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and I am back with another video sponsored by Simon Says Stamo. Today we're going to be using the large tag dies, the gingham background, and then a new stamp set called Roses for You. These are all Simon Says Stamp products. I showed you the stitched heart collage, but I actually didn't end up using that. This is just a perfect storm of I thought this card was going to turn out one way, and it turned out completely different. So I'm using some Simon Says Stamp black dye ink to stamp my background. And I had originally thought that I was going to use the entire piece. That did not end up happening, but I did stamp an entire piece, so I'll have like extra for another card some other day. I did end up stamping that twice, and I think it was just because it was the first time I used that stamp. So I didn't get perfect coverage the first time around, but that's the joy of the Misty, is that you can restamp it. So here I'm using another black ink by Simon Says Stamp. This one is Intense Black, and the huge difference between the two is the Intense Black is completely Copic safe. So you don't want to mix the two up, because if you try to Copic color with the traditional black dye ink, it's going to smear. So we've zoomed in here and we're going to start coloring our leaves. I picked my favorite green combination to do this. I love the yellow greens. I should probably branch out maybe a little bit and try something different, but you know, sometimes you just like to go with what you know. So I'm using a light hand and short flicking motions. I'm adding color to both the base of the leaf and the tips. This is going to put my highlight in the center of the leaf, and it just kind of gives them a more round appearance. This is a super fun, whimsical stamp set, the way that it is drawn. And I thought it would still be interesting even if I colored all the leaves the same way. So I decided I was just going to go with what I liked, and that's a highlight in the center. So I'm working from my lightest colors out to my darkest, and then from my darkest out to my lightest. I'm using my dark pretty sparingly, especially on the smaller leaves, because I'm definitely trying to conserve that highlight. But I do like to take my darkest marker and follow kind of like that line in the middle when I'm flicking it on. That's just a preference. It's not something that, you know, you have to do. You color it however you like. If you like to do it just from the base, or maybe you like to do it from the center out, however you like to color them, there is no wrong way. I know that a lot of times we compare ourselves to other people and we think that, you know, theirs is better, or you know, mine is worse, or what have you. But there isn't a wrong way. It's whatever looks nice to you. So here I didn't want to overblend. I wanted to keep the striations that the flicking gave me, so that there would be a little bit of texture, feel like a little bit of movement. Then we're going to move on to the flowers. I'm going to show you about 3 of these just so you can kind of get the idea of it. And then I'll color the rest of them off camera. I will come back for the buds, the 2 smaller buds, because I colored those just a little bit different. So the way that these are drawn is that they're mostly, you know, I guess they're mostly in the center. Most of what you're looking at is the center of the flower. There's very few petals outside, and you know, just because it's a more whimsical design. So I'm not feathering because there isn't a lot of room here. I'm just using straight lines to go ahead and outline where would be the darkest. So where the petals are closest to the body of the flower is where they would be the darkest. And then I'm doing the same thing, lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest. On my second time around, I am going a little farther out, especially on that larger petal in the center, but I am still being very careful to conserve that highlight, because it's going to set the petals apart from each other. So I struggle, and you've heard me say this before, I struggle with the RVs a little bit. I ended up bringing in the RV69 later on because I used it to color the buds, and I really liked the amount of depth that I got with it. I don't know why. I don't know why I try to stop at the 09. I almost never like it. It almost always feels like it needs something else. So here, this is me going back with the 09, trying to add a little bit more dark, trying to bump up the contrast. And it wasn't enough. Once I saw the RV69 on the paper, I had to use it. So, same thing as the first flower. I'm just outlining where I want it to be the darkest, careful to conserve that highlight. If for some reason your markers bleed, you get a little heavy-handed, and you aren't able to conserve that highlight, in this particular set of colors, the RV02 is light enough to push back the 04. So you can use that to reestablish your highlight, or you can go in with your 0 marker and kind of push some of the color around to get your highlight back. I wanted a little bit of a stronger highlight, so you'll see later on what I do to achieve that. But we're just, adding this the same. I mean, it's just is exactly everything is exactly the same. I feel like a broken record sometimes because it is. It's just outlining, and maybe broadening your color just a little bit, and then hitting it with your lightest color to get that highlight, and then you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and color these off screen, and then I will be back to show you the buds. So here we are, and then there's that 69, and it looks like a really, really dark color when you look at the lid. And I'm not saying that it isn't a dark color, but it is perfect for bumping up that contrast, which is going to give you the depth. So I colored the buds pretty much the same way as far as the circular area was concerned, but I did use a little bit of feathering on the outside of it to fill in the bud a little bit more. And then I didn't use the RV02 was my lightest colors for the larger flowers. I just used the RV06 as my lightest color because buds are tighter, so their color would be more concentrated. And then you saw me go back in there and add that RV69, so just to the darkest parts of those other flowers. Here I'm using my white gel pen to add in that stronger highlight I was telling you about. So just where it would be the lightest, I'm just doing like little half circles or little lines. I prefer to outline all of my images, so I'm using a journaling pen to go ahead and do that. I like a bold black outline. That makes me happy. And then I'm going to fussy cut this out. So the only part that was really a little tricky was on the left-hand side, there's that one leaf that is sticking out on the left bottom. But other than that, it was a pretty solid image, so it didn't really give me too much trouble. When I fussy cut, I move my paper, I hold my scissors straight, move the paper around it. That's the best way to get a good edge. And then because that gingham didn't work out for me as a background, I still used it, but just differently. I decided I wanted to use the picked raspberry to add in a little bit more pink. So I'm working on Canson watercolor paper. I just smushed that down on my Ranger craft mat, and then I'm going to go ahead and just flick it on. It's totally random. Once I'm happy with the way that it looks, I'm going to hit it with my heat tool so that everything is dry, ready to go, set that aside. Then for my sentiment, I wanted to do some white heat embossing. When it comes to card design, you want to balance your hard and your soft edges. So the flowers are a soft edge. The twine is a soft edge. The shape of the tag with the round on top, soft edge. So there's a lot of soft going on. So I wanted to bring in something that was a little bit harder. The gingham is a hard because it's a very graphic pattern. But cutting the label that way so that it's just a square is another hard edge, which will add a little bit of balance to my design. So here I just glued my tags together once I knew how I wanted them to lay. I'm just going to add in a little bit of that pink twine. And I like to lay things out as I go just to make sure I'm going to be happy with the way that it looks. That's what I'm doing there. So now that I'm happy with it, I'm going to add some clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. And that's just going to set off my sentiment without, taking anything away from any of the colors or anything like that. I'm going to use some Tombow Mono multi-glue to adhere down my heart, my flower heart. And I was careful just not to add glue to the far left-hand side because I wanted to pop this up, so I didn't want it sticking to my card base. I'm going to use, speaking of popped up, I'm going to use the Scotch foam tape to add my sentiment. The reason that I can go ahead and add this now is because it's only sticking to the tags. So I didn't have to worry about it being a problem later on sticking, to that card base. I'm going to use just regular Scotch tape to kind of tack my twine, why couldn't I think of that word, twine in place. And I found that this just, works the best for me. It holds it there. I can trim off the excess. It's not going to go anywhere. The only issue with tucking your twine behind these things is it doesn't lay right if you want to adhere it flat. So I wouldn't recommend doing that part if you're not going to pop it up. So here I'm just using more of that Scotch foam tape to pop up my tag. And so getting that placement right, pull off the sticky parts and put that on the card. And then I forgot to film it, I guess, or I don't even know what. But I used clear Wink of Stella to just hit the roses up a little bit. And that is pretty much the whole entire card. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.